Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are really getting into the weeds on something special. We're going deep into the history and really the genetics behind a breed that has so much passion around it.
We really are, and this is for anyone who loves the history of the American Pit Bull Terrier. We're not just looking at the breed, though. We're focusing on a single person whose life's work. I mean, it really became a blueprint for so many others.
It really did. We're talking about Lester Hughes. But, most people know him by his other name, the one that's almost become legendary.
The Old Mountain Man.
Exactly. And when you hear that name, you immediately get a sense of who this person was.
Oh, absolutely. The name itself tells you so much about his philosophy. He was a breeder, of course, but he was more than that. He was a mentor to so many, an aficionado of the game dog.
And the scale of his work is it's staggering. We're talking over 50 years. 50 years dedicated to preserving and breeding the APBT.
And that's the key, right? 50 years of dedication. You don't just stumble into success over that kind of timeline. He was developing these really exceptional bloodlines that had this huge influence on the breed, a profound influence.
So his knowledge, his whole philosophy, it's why people still see him as this indisputable reference point.
It is. If you're serious about the history, you have to go through Hughes. You just have to.
So today, that's what we're going to do. We're going to start with his era, his philosophy.
Okay.
Then we'll actually go to his kennel, figuratively, of course. The Old Mountain Man kennels in the Blue Ridge Mountains.
And we have to talk about the dog, the icon, C.H. Homer.
We absolutely have to. And then we'll look at Hughes as not just a breeder, but as a historian, connecting his own work back to another giant of the breed, Maurice Carver.
It's the whole picture. It's a complete look at a man who didn't just participate in the world of game dogs, he helped build it.
Okay, so let's set the stage. To really understand his impact, we have to place him in time. When was Lester Hughes? When was he at the peak of his influence?
Right, context is everything. His most active period really kicks off in the 1970s, and it runs all the way through the early 2000s.
So the 70s, that's a really critical time for the breed, isn't it?
It's a hugely important period. You're seeing this shift towards more, let's say, formalized documentation.
Yeah.
And the gene pool. It was at a point where it really needed focus to stop it from getting diluted. And right in the middle of all that, the Old Mountain Man kennels it emerges as the benchmark, the standard.
Yeah, the post-Carver era and then into the 80s. That was not a time for amateurs. You needed real rigor.
Absolutely. And what made Hughes different was, well, he wasn't just chasing the latest winner. The sources make it really clear that from very early on, he had this intense interest in pedigrees and genetics.
So he wasn't just a dog man, he was a student.
He was a student of the blood. He was approaching it like an archivist. He was digging back through decades of records, looking at results, looking at health, trying to figure out the probability of getting the traits he wanted.
And that's a huge leap, right? Going from just this dog has a good reputation to actual, evidence-based breeding.
It's massive. It's the difference between art and science, and he was doing both. And that's why he got so much respect in the community. It wasn't given to him, he earned it.
How did he earn it, practically speaking?
Through consistency. His choices, his crosses, they worked over and over again, generation after generation. He was trying to lock in very specific traits, not just how a dog looked, but the deep stuff, the gameness, the structural integrity. He wasn't just getting lucky. He was applying informed, relentless genetic pressure.
The sources really stress his role as a preserver. He wasn't just creating something new. He was protecting something old.
Yes, exactly. He was ensuring that the best qualities of the foundation dogs weren't lost, that they were carried forward, even amplified for the next generation.
An indelible legacy, that's the phrase they use.
And it's the perfect phrase. It means the dog she produced had the genetic power to keep shaping the breed long after he was gone. Their kids, their grandkids. You can still see that mountain man influence today. That's the difference between a guy who has a few good dogs and a true architect of the breed.
And just to give everyone a sense of that quality, we should probably name a couple of the icons that came from his yard.
Yeah, we have to. Of course, we're going to spend a lot of time on C.H. Homer. But you also have to mention GRCH, Shady Lady. I mean, these names, they're not just dogs, they're institutions. They represent a standard.
And what was that standard? What was the thread that connected these champions? It clearly wasn't a specific look.
No, not at all. It was all about performance. And that performance was built on 3 pillars: gameness, endurance, and pit skills.
Let's break those down. Gameness is the mental part.
It's the heart. The absolute refusal to quit no matter what.
Wow.
The will. Then you have endurance, which is the engine, the body's ability to keep going, to fuel that will.
In pit skills, that's the technique,
Yeah.
the intelligence.
That's the craft, the efficiency, the strategy. And Hughes's true genius was breeding dogs that had all three in one package and could reliably pass those traits on. That is incredibly difficult to do.
So that consistency across 3 decades is what really proves his method worked.
It's the ultimate validation. He found quality, he concentrated it, and he preserved it. And because of that, his work didn't just stay in the Blue Ridge Mountains, it went global.
Okay, let's talk about that location, the Blue Ridge Mountains. His whole identity, the old mountain man, is tied to that place. It wasn't just a backdrop, was it?
Not at all. It was. It was a strategic choice. The Blue Ridge Range is huge, it's rugged, it covers parts of Virginia, North Carolina, Tennessee. Choosing a place like that tells you right away that the environment was part of the program.
So the environment itself was a conditioning tool?
It was the first conditioning tool. If your goal is to breed for ultimate endurance and gameness, you can't raise dogs in a sterile box. You have to test those qualities. And nature is the ultimate test.
The sources get into some very specific details about the kennel design, which I think is fascinating. It says the kennels were on a single slip of a mountain.
Yes, that's a huge detail.
And that the dogs were kept on chains with raised kennels. Now, these are traditional methods, but why were they so effective in his specific setup?
Okay, so let's take them one by one. The sloped. Think about it. Just walking around on flat ground works a certain set of muscles. But living your life on a slope, even a gentle one, you're constantly fighting gravity.
So every movement is a micro workout.
It's a constant low-level workout. You're building up stabilizer muscles, your core strength, and especially the hindquarters, the rear assembly. That's where the power comes from. And it's building that power without the high-impact stress of, say, forced road work. It builds durable strength.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. Now, the chains, that's a practice that people outside this world often misunderstand. Why was that a key part of his management?
Right. And it's important to understand the context. In a professional kennel like his, the chain setup is about structure and health. First, it simplifies hygiene massively, especially with those raised kennels we'll get to. Second, it creates a routine and a focused environment for the dog. But physically, there's a huge benefit.
Which is?
Muscle density. When a dog is on a chain, it's constantly pulling and moving against that tension. It builds incredible neck and shoulder strength. It creates a very specific, powerful physique that's dense and defined, not bulky.
And the raised kennels. That sounds simple, but in the mountains, I imagine that's critical.
It's absolutely critical. You're in the Blue Ridge Mountains. It gets cold. It gets damp. Keeping the dogs off the cold, wet ground is paramount for preventing joint problems, for preventing respiratory issues. And again, it's about sanitation. Waste falls away. It keeps the living area clean. It's all part of this holistic system to build the healthiest, strongest animal possible.
So the whole environment was engineered. It was a laboratory designed to enhance both the physical and the mental traits he was breeding for.
It was a perfect symbiosis. You take a dog with the right genetics, the gameness, the drive, and you put it in an environment that constantly challenges and strengthens those exact traits. The place and the dog were perfectly matched. Hughes knew that you can't separate genetics from environment. You need both to reach a dog's full potential.
Which brings us back to him as a geneticist. We said he studied pedigrees, but it was more than that. He had to be ruthless in his selection.
Oh, incredibly. He had to make hard choices. He would study the best bloodlines out there and identify where a specific trait was, really locked in. Maybe it was the powerful back end from one line or the absolute grit from a particular dam. His genius was seeing how to combine those traits and then being patient enough to see it through.
So he wasn't just breeding winners.
No, he was breeding producers. He was building a line that could reliably and repeatedly create that same genetic quality. That's why he became the benchmark. It wasn't a flash in the pan.
An incredible system. And that system produced what might be the most iconic dog of that era.
Without a doubt.
Let's talk about him. C.H. Homer, the gold standard, who really came to fame in the 1980s.
Yeah, Homer is the mast. He's the masterpiece, the culmination of everything we just talked about. His full title, Mountain Man C.H. Homer Rom. That name isn't just a name, it's a resume. It's a statement of everything Hughes was trying to achieve.
So let's unpack that resume for everyone listening. CH is champion, obviously. 4XW means 4 wins, no losses, which is just
It's not a perfect record at that level.
But the part that really puts him in the history books is ROM, right? Ring of Merit. Let's really get into what that means.
Yes, the ROM it's arguably the most important title for a breeder because champion tells you what that one dog did. It's about his personal greatness. But the Ring of Merit, that's about his legacy.
So it's not about his wins.
No, it's about his children's wins. A dog earns ROM status when a certain number of his offspring become champions themselves.
Ah, so he wasn't just a great performer, he was a great producer. He could reliably pass on those winning traits.
Prepotency, that's the word. He was genetically prepotent. One great dog can be an accident. But a dog that produces great dogs over and over, that proves the quality of the blood. The ROM is the ultimate proof that Hughes's entire system worked. Homer was a genetic cornerstone.
Okay, let's get into what made him so good. The sources list those 3 key traits again: gameness, endurance, and pit skills. We touched on them, but let's apply them directly to Homer.
Right, so gameness was his defining trait. The stories about him are legendary. It's that mental drive, that spirit that just refuses to be defeated. It's something you can't train into a dog. It has to be bred in.
And the endurance, that's the physical side.
That's the gas tank. And Homer's was bottomless. That's a direct result of the breeding and the conditioning in the Blue Ridge Mountains we talked about. A dog can have all the heart in the world, but if the body gives out, it's over. Homer's body never gave out.
And then the pit skills. This is where it gets interesting, because it implies more than just aggression. It implies strategy.
100%. The sources say he had a perfect combination of skill, strength, and determination. But they also specifically mention his intelligence.
How does intelligence show up in that kind of contest?
It shows up as adaptability. An intelligent dog isn't a one-trick pony. It assesses the opponent. It changes tactics. If one thing isn't working, it tries another. Maybe it shifts its style from an offensive rush to a more defensive, energy-conserving approach. Homer wasn't just a bulldozer, he was a chess player, a brutal, very effective chess player.
That combination, the genetic will, the physical capacity, and the intelligence to apply it. That's what made his bloodline so powerful.
That's it exactly. And that's why his descendants were so sought after. They inherited not just his drive, but also his exceptional physical structure. He wasn't a fluke. He was the template. He's considered a key specimen in the evolution of the breed for a reason.
And here's the crucial link, the thing that ties it all together. The sources are very clear on this. C.H. Homer was a descendant of Maurice Carver's dogs.
That's the linchpin. That one fact connects 2 of the most important eras of the breed. It shows that Hughes wasn't starting from scratch. He was a brilliant refiner of existing greatness.
So he saw the potential in Carver's line.
He saw the raw genetic gold in Carver's line, and through his own selection process and his unique environment, he polished it into an icon like Homer. It's the perfect transition to talking about Hughes's other equally important role,
A historian.
the historian and the authenticator.
This part of the story shows a whole other side of him. He wasn't just obsessed with his own yard, he was obsessed with the truth of the breed's history. And he focused a lot of that energy on Maurice Carver.
He had to. I mean, Carver is one of the most iconic breeders in the history of the sport. His dogs were foundational, but the record-keeping back then, in the 50s and 60s, it wasn't always perfect.
To put it mildly.
Right. And Carver's name became so famous, so valuable that, let's just say, pedigrees started getting creative.
People were faking papers to say their dog was a Carver dog.
All the time. It was a huge problem. You had oral histories, handwritten notes, sometimes people deliberately obscuring a dog's true parentage. So the entire genetic record of this crucial bloodline was at risk of being corrupted.
And Hughes was in a unique position to set the record straight.
The perfect position. He'd spent his life studying it, he knew the people involved, and he had the respect of the community. When he spoke, people listened. He became the fact-checker for an entire generation of breeding.
The sources outline 4 key areas where he provided these insights about Carver. Let's walk through them.
Okay, so first, he just talked about Carver the man, his methods, what he was trying to do. That personal context is so important. Second, and this is huge for breeders, Hughes pointed out which specific dogs he thought were Carver's absolute best.
So he was basically creating a guide for future breeders. Start here. This is the real stuff.
Exactly. It's one master pointing out the masterpieces of another. Invaluable. Third, he dedicated himself to uncovering the truth behind Carver's pedigrees. This was the real detective work.
Verifying crosses, confirming which dogs were actually related.
Yes. Separating fact from fiction. By cleaning up those records, he was protecting the genetic integrity of the entire line. He was ensuring that breeders who wanted to build on Carver's work like he did to get Homer We're working with the real blueprint.
And the last point was that he explored Carver's lasting influence, which shows he saw himself as part of a continuum.
Completely. He wasn't trying to erase Carver or replace him. He was trying to honor him by preserving the truth of his work. He understood that Homer's existence was only possible because of what Carver had done decades earlier. His interviews on the subject are basically priceless historical documents now.
So it's this incredible synthesis. He's a top-tier breeder creating dogs like Homer, and at the same time, he's a meticulous historian ensuring the foundation he's building on is solid rock, not sand.
You can't separate the two roles. His success as a breeder was because he was such a good historian. He knew the history, so he knew where to go for the genetics. He ensured that these foundational lines are still shaping the breed today because we can actually trust their history.
And that really brings our deep dive full circle. We've gone from the man himself, the old mountain man, to his philosophy, his unique kennel in the Blue Ridge Mountains.
All the way to his greatest creation, C.H. Homer, and then back in time to his role in preserving the history that made it all possible. It's an incredible story of dedication.
It really is. The biggest lesson for me is just the power of that long-term vision. Over 50 years focused on a single goal, perfecting a bloodline based on gameness, intelligence, and physical soundness.
He gave everyone a model for how to do it right. It's about commitment, it's about understanding genetics, and it's about respecting the history of the breed.
The takeaway really is that idea of the ideal specimen. He proved that it wasn't about luck. It was about meticulous study and ruthless selection. You could, in a way, engineer a dog like Homer, a champion who then becomes an ROM producer. That's the Holy Grail.
It is. And it raises a really important question for today. If Hughes's whole legacy was built on this intense focus on verifiable history and quality, what's our responsibility now?
In an age where information and misinformation spreads instantly.
Exactly. In an age of digital pedigrees and, breeding for volume instead of quality, the responsibility falls on the enthusiasts, on the real lovers of the breed, to keep that same standard, to demand accuracy, to prioritize quality. That's how you honor the work of someone like Lester Hughes.
Well said. And for anyone listening who has been captivated by this history and wants to go even deeper, and believe me, there is so much more to learn, the resources are out there.
They are. And if you truly love the history of the APBT, finding good, reliable sources is everything. That's why we have to give a specific recommendation here. You really need to visit APBT info on their website or on YouTube. There are literally hundreds of hours of history of the pit bull and the game dog.
It's an incredible resource. They have historical interviews, they have yard tours.
Yeah.
It really brings the stories of people like Hughes and Carver to life in a way we can only touch on here.
It does. The website is easy to remember, www.aptinfo.com. If you're serious about this history, that's your next stop. Go and get lost in it.
A huge thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the life and legacy of a true foundational figure.
It was a pleasure. The standards that the old mountain man set are as relevant today as they were 50 years ago.
Until next time, keep digging deeper into the history that shapes our world.